Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Always excited to be in Luxembourg. Today, I want to tell you a little bit more about the story of how I kicked off my journey and hopefully be able to draw some lessons related to what it means to build a business, but also in particular when it comes to a topic that has historically not been understood as one that can be the combination of purpose and profit at the same time. In 2016, I was in an incredibly comfortable position to be working in the finance industry, where I was in a fintech startup that was scaling incredibly fast, that was looking into explaining how digitization can support the financial institutions to make better decisions on lending to small and medium-sized businesses. And little did I know that 2017, shortly after my kind of career kickoff in this digital plus finance kind of setup, I would find myself on a beach where instead of surfing, I was starting to collect trash. And what ended up happening quite quickly was that I understood that while everything on one side of the corner of the world can be incredibly comfortable, where you have everything organized in terms of your day-to-day decisions, the moment when you get a reality check that is a little bit different than what you see on the day-to-day, where everything is organized, somehow you look a little bit different at the world. This collection of trash was not necessarily for me the kickoff point of my journey with Plan A. It was simply a reflection. I went to Morocco. The situation happened, and essentially the short few months that happened after that, I spent researching what it really meant for the planet, for the economy, to look at nature as a resource that is able to be depleted rather than anything else. As an expert in finance, my thinking was, okay, let me do something very simple. I'm just going to build an algorithm that is looking into the worst performing indicators, publicly available data, and then on the other hand, look into all of the information about the money that we're flowing into addressing these issues. Because let's be honest, maybe I learn about climate change, but I don't have the capacity to fix it all myself. I ended up finding out really quickly that there was no positive correlation between the worst performing environmental indicators and the money flowing into addressing them. It was a bit of an interesting conundrum because at that time, living in London, working in finance, everything seemed to be totally fine in terms of my own also decision making. And this reflection point was purely a spreadsheet that was the sad reality of what climate change would define in terms of impacts on the economy, but not necessarily something that me, myself, could be able to drive. Within 1 month, I decided to be a bit more provocative with decision making in my life. I quit my job in finance. I decided also to leave London, and I decided to build Plan A. Based on all of the data that I had gathered, it became quite evident that there was actually a possibility to draw a really tangible conclusion that there's a correlation between the stability of the economy and the way we approach nature. It wasn't really clear to me what was the pathway to be able to kind of build a product specifically for this, but with my historical knowledge in finance and technology, it felt a lot more comfortable. So V1 of Plan A 2017 was an algorithm that was looking into the climate risk costs. It was looking into how every single industry was going to be impacted and what it meant for the particular building blocks of these industries. We started working with companies on an experimentation level like Airbus, also big tech startups, and what became quite evident was that there was a really tangible number that you can put behind even a particular facility on how it will be impacted, be it by floods or be it by natural disasters of different sorts. We stumbled upon a big issue within the first year already, and that was actually the fact that while it was incredibly beneficial to speak about these issues to all these big corporates, you find this one lightning kind of strike, one reference point, one champion that would be excited to speak about the topic, but the whole organization was not confirmed or coordinated in a way to consider that climate change was something that would be defining the business KPIs on a day-to-day basis. We had to do something about this, and we decided to shorten the timeline in terms of the reference points that we were giving to these businesses. Instead of talking to them about the next 50 years, we actually said, let's talk to them about this year. A year later, after the first year of Planning, we decided to give them software that was assessing what was happening within the business today. Not how floods are going to be impacting you in the next 50 years, but what is actually happening today. The problem started to be slowly but surely resolved, or at least the stakeholders that we were looking into being able to connect to were a lot more. Because all of a sudden it became CEO relevant, it became sustainability manager relevant, and it became chief sustainability officer relevant for the cases where these kinds of even roles actually existed. Within the next few years, we ended up doing something that makes me incredibly proud, but also makes me incredibly hungry for the further increase of speed with which we are able to deliver. Today, Plan A has more than 1,500 clients. We work with companies of the likes like BMW, Chloe. I'm also sitting on boards of different organizations. And what we do is a few simple things that always go back to the core of what we kicked off Plan A with. And this is essentially supporting businesses on understanding what is the economic value of being able to not only talk about sustainability as this hype topic that is like, oh yes, let's be nice to the environment, let's think about the animals or any of these natural disasters that make us incredibly scared for the future, but how do we actually tangibly make sustainability a case for the businesses that we work with and for the stakeholders that are within them. I want to share with you a few examples of companies that we've been able to see transform within the last few years. And luckily, these are examples of companies that you all know in one way or another. One unexpected one is KFC. We've been working with KFC for the last few years, and we cover their data assessment on a sustainability level for the whole of Europe, but we're talking about assessing every single one of their facilities and shops and restaurants in any country that they exist in Europe. You might wonder, okay, but this is an organization that is incredibly dependent on water or natural resources of different types. When they came to us, they actually did what is quite unusual in our industry and in any software industry. They called us and they said, we actually have decided to work with you. And we were, what? Maybe you want to get us to speak to procurement or to someone that is going to do an RFP assessment on us. They said, no, we actually called a lot of your clients and we understood that you have the capacity to be able to support. And since then, what we've been able to do with them is, first of all, assess tens of millions of data points on a monthly basis for them. Thanks to this data, we give them automatically a prescription on how they can reduce emissions. And then we now, also since recently, have been able to start inviting their suppliers and stakeholders to transform. How many of you know what Scope 1, 2, and 3 is? One. So, if you take this example that I'm just giving now, it is important for you to understand what does this whole topic of sustainability in business means. For the 10 years that I've been working within this topic, I have had to learn a lot about the science behind it. And a simple, from today's perspective, concept, but incredibly important for anyone, is the definition of the different types of emissions that we have. So there's 3 categories of emissions that a business has. Scope 1, facilities and vehicles. Scope 2, electricity, heating, cooling. Scope 3, suppliers, investments, and also transportation and other types. You might think, okay, this is getting a little bit too technical, but if you put it in the context of the example that I gave, and I will give a few more, you understand that there's actually the totality of an organization that all of a sudden has this influence on the responsibility and the footprint that a business has. And if I put myself in the shoes of anyone that works, for example, in the finance industry, you all of a sudden start understanding that every single investment decision weighs in terms of how you look from a footprint perspective. And every single decision as a business that has physical products also matters, because you also have the materials, the transportation, this logistics element, and the suppliers. So going back to this KFC example, we obviously found ourselves into a setup where we're looking into all of these different elements related to the existence of this business. There's this packaging, there's the food element, there's the waste, there's also the transportation, and there's these suppliers that are hundreds, that are from all over the world. We looked at that particular case, and from today's perspective, we've been able to scale this with the 7-8 years of experience that we have within the company to these 1,500 companies. The companies of the likes of BMW or Chloe, or even the European Commission that is a client of Plan A, have understood the power of data. They've understood that there's a necessity to be able to assess with a lot of meticulous focus every single element of your existence as a business, follow the legislation, and essentially be able to make tangible decisions. I always get asked, why does this really matter? And I also have a bit of a cynical side to me, and I know that sometimes this topic can feel incredibly heavy, because you look at all the news, you look at everything that you study about climate change, about sustainability, and you feel overwhelmed with all of the data points, all of the even news that tells you there's yet another natural disaster. After 8 years of working on this topic, I've actually gotten a little bit more proactively comfortable with the idea that there's beauty in the fact that there's decades of science that has been put out there that we can use. With Plan A, we've been able to also translate this into a product. And we've been able, through all of the data that we've gathered for the businesses that we work with, to understand that there's tangible ways in which businesses can transform. Why does this matter? This cynical side of me has also understood that while I truly believe in legislation, and I truly believe in the responsibility of every single individual as a stakeholder that can go out and purchase in the most sustainable way, the biggest power that we have to be able to drive the climate change agenda sits within businesses. Businesses have been able to show us throughout history that they can drive innovation, they can put a lot of money in projects that are provocative, exciting, and also give power to the people that are employed by them, the people that are their suppliers, and also the people that have invested in them. And if I can leave you with one message before kind of giving the chance maybe for other topics to be covered on the stage, I want to tell you that my story is relevant to the extent that it becomes the kickoff point for anyone that wants to find their way into the topic. We have the way to work with a lot of companies. We're really lucky to have some of the biggest players in the corporate scene and the investment scene, as well as also in the technology scene, that have trusted us, invested in us, and also our clients. But the whole transformation that needs to happen on an economical level is a little bit bigger than one single company. It is a matter of an ecosystem, and it is a matter of people knowing that with every single decision that we make within the business sphere, we actually are influencing this package of something that has been bought by a fashion company or from a food chain to make its way down the line and be potentially recycled and not end up on this beach in Morocco where I kicked off my journey. Thank you so much.